Assistant Director Harold Cooper.
Do you have an appointment?
I do not.
Well, we'll see about that.
Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. We are dying.
Ex-government agent and one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives, Raymond Reddington, mysteriously turns himself in to the FBI. Raymond Reddington's arrival at the FBI building in New York City sets off a wave of events that unravel a complex web of intrigue and danger. Because he was identified as a fugitive, before confidently stepping into the building, when he announces his identity to security personnel, a routine check reveals his status as a fugitive on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Quickly, alarms go off and Reddington turns himself in, kneeling on the federal seal amid a tense standoff with armed guards. Things happen quickly once this happens, and we cut to a scene in which Cooper arrives to meet with Agent Ressler. He also mentions his personal relationship with Reddington after he tried to kill him years ago. Despite initial suspicions, Cooper and Agent Ressler confirmed Reddington's true identity and injected him with the Alpha chip tracking device, which was then injected into his arm. Reddington, condescending but polite, begins speaking in a condescending, if polite and well-spoken, but still insulting manner toward Cooper. Reddington provides intelligence on the deceased criminal Ranko Zamani. Despite skepticism, Reddington's claim about Zamani is proven true. Cooper and Ressler are forced to acknowledge Reddington's credibility when his claim about Zamani is corroborated by evidence of the latter's recent activities, earning his cooperation. He demands to speak only to Elizabeth Keene. He tells them he will help the FBI with Zamani as currently their interests are aligned. One caveat to which Cooper responds Red has no bargaining power, which Red quickly corrects and further after revealing it was he who helped Ranko get into the country, and he has plans for an attack. It becomes clear they will have to deal with Red on his terms. For now, he has but one demand. Red states that he will only speak to Elizabeth Keene. Donald Ressler asks, who is Elizabeth Keene? The scene switches. Elizabeth Keene and her husband Tom Keene. It's her first day at work for the FBI. While they are preparing for work, they agree to meet at lunchtime to attend an adoption agency interview. Tom shows Liz a flyer for the Washington Zoo. He is trying to decide where to take his students on a field trip. As they leave the house, 2 FBI Tahoes and a helicopter arrive outside the house, and Liz is taken to the post office to meet with Cooper, who questions her connection to Reddington. The point of this conversation is to come to some understanding as to why Reddington would even ask for her, and more pointedly, Liz is then taken to meet Red. Red greets Liz and tells her about her background, and the daughter of General Daniel Riker is going to be kidnapped by Zamani in under an hour. An armed team led by Liz and Ressler rush to meet the general and find the location of his daughter. Liz and the team then head to a ballet school where Beth is taken out of her class. Beth is in a minivan with Liz in an FBI convoy, and Liz tries to keep Beth calm. Liz gives Beth a Stars and Stripes pin, and Beth reciprocates by giving Liz her bracelet, but faces an ambush resulting in the girl's abduction. After a gunfight in which Ressler saves Liz's life, Liz back at the post office where Red is being held, Liz questions Red about the abduction, and Red questions Liz about the scar on her wrist. Red says that to get Beth back, he will need to see what information they currently have. When he is taken to the operations room, he identifies 2 more members of the conspiracy as the chemist and the banker. Red states that the chemist makes chemical weapons. Reddington offers to help in exchange for better conditions, identifying the chemist, a key figure in the conspiracy. He explains that in order to gather the information, he will need to be apparently free. Red is installed in his favorite hotel, Reddington orchestrates the capture of the chemist, earning improved conditions. When Liz returns home, she finds some balloons and a card stating, "It's a girl," with Tom sitting in a chair facing away from the door. When she turns round, she sees that Tom is tied to the floor, gagged, and has been tortured. Zamani appears from the shadows and asks her what she knows about his plan with the general's daughter. She tells him all she knows, and he thanks her for the arrest of the chemist, as this means that he will not have to pay him. He then stabs Tom in the leg and the stomach, telling Liz that she can save many Americans by stopping him now or let Zamani go, and just one, her husband. Liz tries to stop Tom's bleeding and calls 911. Once she has seen Tom safely into hospital, she storms into Red's hotel room and questions him about Zamani's visit. Red is not forthcoming with information and questions her in return about what Zamani said. Exasperated, Liz stabs Red in the neck with a pen, and he passes out. After Red is taken to hospital, Liz arrives at his room door, and even though she is on suspension, is allowed into his room, where she discovers that he has escaped. Red meets with Zamani, and they reminisce about old times. During the conversation, it's made clear that Red is behind Zamani's attack on Tom. Meanwhile, the FBI have instituted a manhunt for Red, led by Wrestler. Red calls Liz, and during the conversation she realizes that the target for Zamani's bomb is the Washington Zoo. Wrestler follows Red's chip signal and corners his man on the roof of the museum. When he turns around, it's Zamani. As he withdraws something from his pocket, Wrestler shoots him, and he falls to his death. The item he was withdrawing from his pocket turns out to be a pill bottle containing Red's tracking chip. At the zoo, Liz finds Beth sitting on a bench wearing a backpack containing a bomb. Red calls her and says that he sent someone to help, as the bomb squad won't get there in time. A Ukrainian man arrives, defuses the bomb, then runs away with it. Beth is reunited with her father. Reddington is arrested. Reddington proposes a deal with the FBI, offering his expertise to hunt down high-profile criminals, where he says that Zamani was a small fish, will help the FBI hunt the whales. He does, however, have conditions. He negotiates his own immunity deal. He chooses his own security detail. His tracking chip is to be a superior version approved by DARPA, and of course he will only talk to Elizabeth Keene. When Liz arrives home, she starts cleaning the blood of the carpet. She takes up the carpet. Under the carpet, she finds a storage area containing a box. In the box, she finds a large amount of money, several passports in different names with Tom's picture, and a gun. Liz discovers incriminating evidence in her home, deepening the mystery surrounding her husband. Raymond Reddington's journey takes an unexpected turn as he receives a new set of clothes in his cell, signaling a shift in his confinement. Escorted under guard, he emerges onto an oil tanker, his destination revealed as Washington, D.C., where intrigue awaits. In Washington, Red and Elizabeth Keene are given polygraph tests. During his test, Red suddenly stops and announces that there is going to be a major incident at the Decatur Industrial Park. Meanwhile, Assistant Director Harold Cooper is in a meeting with Diane Fowler, United States Assistant Attorney General, Criminal Division. She insists that there will be no deal, complicating efforts to strike a deal with Reddington. The FBI and other law enforcement personnel search the park but find nothing, and are just about to leave when they are warned about a runaway train on the adjacent track. A runaway train hurtles toward disaster, unleashing chaos and sending agents scrambling for safety. Amidst the chaos, Liz visits her husband Tom Keene in the hospital and confronts Reddington, asserting her authority and denying his immunity deal. Reddington denies involvement in the train crash, just that there would be an incident, but reveals the existence of a lethal assassin known as the Freelancer, who orchestrates catastrophic disasters. Reddington offers a lead on the Freelancer's next target, who assassinates his targets by causing large-scale disasters. He lists several previous accidents where a politician was killed along with hundreds of bystanders. Red says that he knows an intermediary who may be able to tell them the Freelancer's next victim, but he will have to meet him in person in Montreal, which leads the FBI to Montreal. The FBI arranged for Red to go to Montreal and Liz to accompany him to the restaurant where the meeting is to occur. At the restaurant, Liz and Red talk, and Red asks Liz to profile him. Wrestler and the RCMP monitoring the meeting notice Red slip something to the sommelier and then leave the table. They all storm inside, but Red is nowhere to be found. But Reddington's evasive tactics leave authorities grasping at shadows. Eventually, Reddington provides a breakthrough lead, identifying the next target as anti-human trafficking advocate Floriana Campo. Liz and Wrestler argue about whose fault it is that Red escaped all the way back to the surveillance van, but when they open the door, they find Red inside waiting for them. Red tells them that his contact was the co-check person and shows them a picture of the target, Floriana Campo, a noted anti-human trafficking campaigner who is one of Liz's personal heroes. Back in Washington, tensions escalate as Reddington demands his deal be secured before attending the event. As Red is the only person who knows what the freelancer looks like, he has to attend the event, which he won't do until his deal is in place. Despite Fowler's reluctance, a tentative agreement is reached, paving the way for Reddington's assistance. She also agrees that Demb and Luli Zhang will form his security detail. Liz provides reassurance to Floriana that the assassin has been apprehended, ensuring her safety as she returns to her hotel room. However, Floriana's sense of security is short-lived as Red confronts her, unveiling his knowledge of her leadership role in the Eberhard cartel. Their encounter escalates into a tense debate about ethics and the intricacies of managing dual identities, revealing the complex interplay of power and morality in their world. Wrestler is questioning the freelancer and getting nowhere, so Mira takes over with enhanced interrogation techniques. Squeezing his broken leg, she forces the freelancer to reveal that Red had ordered the hit on Floriana. Liz is informed and returns to Floriana's hotel room to find the agents guarding the room have been replaced by Demb, who allows her access. Inside the room, Floriana attempts to convince Liz of her innocence, but betrays herself by calling Red Raymond. Red says that he has had Floriana poisoned, but he has the antidote which he will hand over once she admits her role as head of the Eberhard cartel. Floriana is given an emergency tracheotomy by Liz and nods her guilt. As Floriana's duplicity is exposed, Liz grapples with the harsh realities of her world. When Liz asks what would have happened if the antidote had been administered in time, Red tells her there was no antidote. Liz checks the pockets of the clothes he was wearing when he was tortured and stabbed, and finds a USB flash drive in an envelope labeled Elizabeth Keene background. When she checks the file, she finds that it contains a testimonial about her. Reddington's calculated maneuvers leave Liz reeling, forcing her to confront uncomfortable truths about her husband and her own past. As the dust settles, Liz unearths a startling revelation, setting the stage for a new chapter in her tumultuous journey. In Shanghai, a chilling scene unfolds as a man is ruthlessly assassinated, his hand severed to access his computer. But a message cannot be decoded by the computer, so the order is given: call Raymond Reddington. Meanwhile, in Washington, Elizabeth Keene test fires the gun found in the box and some telephone directories to be ballistically tested to see if they were involved in any crimes, amidst the backdrop of her complex life. Reddington, ever enigmatic, is approached with a cryptic message from Wu Jing, a legendary Chinese agent, drawing him into a web of international intrigue. As tensions mount, Liz reluctantly agrees to assist Reddington, unraveling a deadly game orchestrated by Wu Jing. In a race against time, Liz and Reddington infiltrate a radio station to decode the elusive message, only to find themselves trapped in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Simultaneously, danger lurks closer to home after Ellie and Tom have left for Tom's physiotherapy session. A team of men break into the house and install cameras and other equipment, supervised from outside by a man eating an apple, which leads to escalation of risks for everyone. Inside, Wu Jing introduces his new cryptographer Jin Sun. As there is no transmission from the bunker, Red distracts everyone by pointing out one of the FBI surveillance vehicles, while Liz plugs her USB key into Jin's computer. The message is soon decoded, and the person involved is not an agent, but an architect, Henry Cho, who had helped the CIA. As Liz and Red attempt to leave, alarms sound and the bunker is locked down. Wu Jing states that any connection to a federal site is verified, and if found to be unauthorized, then the alarm sounds. His security system has detected that the contact came from Jin Sun's computer, and he proceeds to beat him. When he smashes Sun's computer in front of him, Sun notices the USB key Liz inserted. Before he can tell Wu Jing, Red shoots him dead, telling Wu Jing that still wants to leave. Wu Jing agrees, and they leave by another exit to avoid the FBI. Meanwhile, Wu Jing's assassins reach Henry's location, but he has been warned to hide by Mira. Donald Ressler and Mira Malik arrive shortly after the assassins, and Ressler manages to throw one of the building and, after a long fight, subdue a second. Mira shoots the third one just before he could kill Henry. Wu Jing is making his escape by car with Red and Liz. Red asks for them to be dropped off, and as she leaves the car, Liz puts her tracking patch on the side of the vehicle, so the FBI SWAT team easily intercept them and arrest Wu Jing a few minutes later. Liz asks Red why her, and he says that it is because of her father. When she asks if Red knew her father, he says that the answer is complicated and says no more. Liz receives the ballistic report. With each revelation, the lines blur between friend and foe, leaving Liz grappling with the unsettling truths lurking beneath the surface. Back at the post office, Ressler goes into Harold Cooper's office and tells him that he had placed a flag on all Liz's requests. Ressler gives him the unredacted version of the report she requested. Cooper remarks that the Secretary of Homeland Security is to be included in any briefings about this homicide. Liz returns home to join Tom's welcome home party, where unknown to her, they are being watched by the apple-eating man. Liz's world is upended once again, leaving her to navigate the treacherous waters of her newfound reality. In a chilling sequence, a man meticulously prepares a motel room for a sinister task, concealing his true identity behind a disguise. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Keene takes matters into her own hands, delving into classified evidence linked to her husband, Tom Keene. Despite warnings, her determination leads her deeper into a web of deception. Red tells Liz that Lorca has contacted him requesting a new identity for later that day. Liz tells Red that she is sure that Lorca will be convicted. Red tells her he isn't so sure. He tells her normally he would have turned him away, but her involvement in arresting Lorca and the fact Lorca intends on leaving town might be a danger to Liz and requires his attentions. As events unfold, Liz's involvement in a high-stakes trial draws suspicion, prompting surveillance from her colleagues. Amidst these tensions, Reddington becomes embroiled in a deadly game orchestrated by a notorious assassin, Wu Jing, whose actions threaten Liz's safety. In court, just as the star eyewitness is about to identify Lorca, a juror has a seizure and collapses. The trial is suspended, courtroom cleared, and the witness is escorted away by Liz, who then turns him over to what she believes to be U.S. Marshals. The Marshals prove to be fake, kill the witness, and make their escape before Liz and Ressler can stop them. The witness's body is delivered to the motel room first seen at the start of the episode, where the now near-nude man, revealing what appeared to be multiple burns all over his body. He puts the lifeless body in the bath, photographs it, and begins to pour a mixture of chemicals over the body. The FBI trace the van used to transport the witness to the motel room, but it has been cleaned of evidence apart from a single dog hair. Liz calls Red, who is selling arms in Haiti, and accuses him of complicity in the death of the witness. When Liz mentions hundreds of victims, Red's interest is piqued. He tells Liz to check the bathtub drain. She runs her finger around the rim and sniffs the residue. She tells him it smells of chemicals. He says she will need a plumber. Setting off a chain of events, return Washington, Red tells the FBI about the Stewmaker, a body disposal expert who uses chemicals to dispose of bodies. The Stewmaker is responsible for concealing hundreds of murders and is a trophy collector. The transfer of Lorca to the Department of Homeland Security is ambushed when an RPG is fired at the transport team vehicle, and Liz is knocked to the ground and quickly black-bagged by unknown parties in Lorca's employ, setting off a chain of events that culminate in Liz's abduction. With the FBI in pursuit, Reddington races against time to unravel the mystery, leading to a confrontation with a ruthless adversary. Liz's kidnap and Lorca's escape spur the FBI into action, and Red is given permission to contact Lorca and provide him with a new identity. Ressler insists on accompanying Red to the meeting. Red tries to dissuade him from coming, but Ressler insists. At the meeting, Red tells Lorca that Ressler is an FBI agent, but Ressler says that he is the person that provided Red with a new identity for Lorca. Red confirms this information, providing Ressler with a reason for being there. He tells Lorca Ressler is crooked as a Corsican highway. Red has documents, and all Lorca needs to be transported and established by meeting the relevant people to start business in his new life. But with a caveat, he cannot travel for a day. Lorca demands to leave immediately, which Red tells him is impossible. He will not help Lorca because he has kidnapped an FBI agent and is too hot. They converse over Lorca taking things personally, and Lorca accuses Red of the same and wanting the Stewmaker's identity. Red refuses to hand over the identity until Lorca reveals who the Stewmaker is, implying that this is Ressler's fee. He tells Lorca he is correct. He wants the Stewmaker and wrestler saving Liz will help him to solidify his role in the FBI. This is all pretense, of course, as they are merely covering their intentions. Lorca, faced with not getting the new identity and being trapped without Red's help unless he agrees, acquiesces. And although he doesn't know the Stewmaker's identity, he does have contact information. In a heart-pounding climax, Reddington's moral ambiguity is laid bare as he confronts the perpetrator, ultimately saving Liz's life at a grave cost. As the dust settles, Liz grapples with the harsh realities of her world, confronting the darkness within herself and those around her. Liz tells Red that Cornish doesn't need to die, and Red considers the possibility of change, briefly only to, in the end, grab the sitting man by the ankles, tipping him backward into the now bubbling tub of chemicals. Cornish submerges into the red liquid with a splash to which Liz is instantly horrified. The FBI arrive and release Liz and secure the scene. While the FBI are tending to Liz, Red finds an album of Cornish's victims from which he removes a single picture. As Liz is being loaded onto an ambulance, he sets the thick album of victims inside the vehicle. He tells her many mysteries of missing and dead people's murders will be solved with the album. She calls Red a monster. He agrees. She asks how he justifies himself. Red replies, by saving your life. When Liz returns home, Tom tells her that he has booked a 3-day break at the place they went to in June last year. When Liz checks the flyer, she realizes that the adjoining restaurant to the hotel is named the Angel Station Hotel. Amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerges as Liz uncovers a clue that may hold the key to unraveling the mysteries of her past. Yet, with danger lurking at every turn, she is forced to confront the chilling truth about those closest to her, leaving her to question everything she thought she knew. Liz's world is shaken when she asks Tom about the Angel Station Hotel before having a disturbing dream. A disguised man orchestrates a chilling abduction, burying his victim alive. During this, the captive stabs him in the chest, but his captor is barely affected by it, and his only reaction is to look at the captive in surprise. Reddington learns of criminal activity involving Tommy Phelps and enlists the FBI's help to intercept it. Reddington educates Liz about the ruthless intermediary known as the courier, whose involvement in transactions ensures success through fear and violence. Once involved in a transaction, the courier can neither be bribed nor stopped. If either party involved tries to double-cross the other, he kills them both. Despite initial skepticism, Cooper authorizes a covert operation against the courier. Liz and Mira Malik trail an Iranian agent named Hamid Saurash to the contact location, the Winston Farmers Market. At the market, the surveillance team, led by Donald Ressler, notice that Saurash has been given a phone and uses it to make contact. Saurash approaches a stall and speaks to the stall holder, who ducks into a tent, then shoots him in the head. Liz and Mira give chase as the stall holder flees in his vehicle. Mira, presumably because of her CIA training, is able to cause the two vehicles to crash, and they pursue him on foot. While hidden from Liz and Mira, he inserts a memory card into a fresh cut on his chest. Liz and Mira corner him and instruct him to raise his arms. He seems to reset his right shoulder before using his left arm to raise the right one. Back at the post office, after a failed interrogation, it is discovered the courier is unable to feel pain due to the genetic disease of congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis. A medical scan reveals several objects implanted in his body. Investigation of the most recent cut reveals the memory card. The FBI identifies the captive as Seth Nelson, an NSA programmer. They trace the courier to Tommy Phelps. Meanwhile, Phelps has escaped custody using items concealed under his skin, leading to a showdown where Phelps ultimately dies. With Reddington's guidance, Liz and the team locate and rescue Seth. While Liz is completing her report on the day, she receives a package containing the unredacted report on the Angel Station Hotel. The report contains reference to information implicating Tom in a murder case. As tensions escalate between Liz and Tom, unseen watchers observe, hinting at further intrigue to come, leaving their future uncertain. Two individuals discuss a car bomb design using cesium-137, needing it in 36 hours instead of 48. Meanwhile, Liz and Tom argue over a mysterious box, leading to Tom's interrogation at the post office. Liz calls the FBI and Tom is arrested. Tom is brought to the post office with a hood over his head, and Liz explains that this is where she works and that it is technically a black site. As Tom is led away for interrogation, Donald Ressler tells Liz to worry about herself, not Tom. Red negotiates with a Middle Eastern client while handling updates about Tom. Liz is put on leave until Tom's situation is resolved. Mira Malik starts interrogating Tom, while Liz has a meeting with Red in front of the White House, where he talks about corporate terrorism. He mentions an incident where a drug company's stock price suffered a severe drop after several people died from poison shipments. He tells her about Gina Xanatakos, a corporate terrorist who is the best in the business. Red then goes to meet with Cooper and threatens him with reminiscences about an incident in Kuwait. Tom tells Mira about his interview and that he had a meeting with Walter Burroughs, the headmaster of a school at the hotel. Red, through Liz, tells the FBI about Gina and gives them her alias, Shuby Hartwell. Using this information, the FBI trace her to a hotel. At the hotel, Gina and a man are making out when he gives her some papers, and she then kills him by injecting poison into his neck. Mira goes to meet with William Burroughs, the school headmaster, and shows him a picture of Tom. Gina removes her blonde wig and positions the body to look like a suicide by drug overdose. She leaves the room just before Wrestler and Liz arrive and hides in a corner while they enter the room. While Liz searches the room, Wrestler heads downstairs in the elevator lift. Unknown to him, Gina is also in the elevator concealed behind other innocent guests. When they are alone in the elevator, Gina attacks Wrestler, eventually knocking him out, but loses her cell phone in the process. The phone contains many calls from the Hanner Group and a call regarding Cobalt-60, which Wrestler identifies as a component in a dirty bomb. When the FBI search Gina's apartment, Liz finds a box similar to one she found in her own house, containing pictures of Victor Falken and several passports for the Shuby Hartwell alias. They also find a picture of Tom by her bed. Liz meets with Red to talk about her feelings. She tells him she does not know who to trust, and he tells her she can trust him. Cooper has another meeting with Liz and Wrestler where he tells her that normally she would not be involved in this case. But because they trace money wired by Gina to Max Rudiger, they need her to ask Red to find Max. When Liz goes to meet with Red, he is still negotiating his deal and complaining that the payment has gone to New Orleans and not to Houston. She asks Red to find Max Rudiger. Red flies to Germany with Dem Zuma and convinces Max to reveal Gina's plan in exchange for a Syrian contract. Red discovers that the bomb is a sedan car. The FBI find Gina in a park, and Liz corners her in the women's restroom where they fight. Just before Gina stabs Liz, Wrestler shoots her in the right shoulder. She realizes that the target is the Port of Houston, as that would result in the Hanner Group's investment in the port in New Orleans soaring to record highs. After a short but useless search of the general port area, Liz realizes that Gina needed help to get the car into the port without an inspection. She has the port officials find any cargo that arrived under Turkish diplomatic seal, so they check for those items and find the car. The bomb squad can do nothing, but if the car was submerged, the radiation could be contained. Wrestler drives it into an empty dock, jumping out just before the car plunges into the water. Gina is offered a plea bargain for her full cooperation. She admits to killing Victor Falken because he knew about an arms smuggling route used by Chechen guerrillas, and the man who hired her was making millions of dollars smuggling. She names Red as the one who hired her. Liz shows Gina a picture of Tom, and she says that she has never seen him before. As Tom is being released, he spots a picture of Newton Phillips and identifies him as the man who interviewed him for the job in Boston. Liz storms into Red's current abode and tells him that they are through, that Gina confessed, and she does not understand why he set Tom up. She leaves after telling him to go to hell. At Liz's house, the Watchers are still watching, and they cannot decide if Tom is innocent, but they decide that he does not work for Red, and wonder who he does work for. A man unwittingly leaves a metal case on a subway, which releases deadly gas, killing all on board. Elizabeth and Tom discuss home renovations to erase the bad memories when she receives a call from Wrestler telling her to turn on the TV. When she asks what channel, he tells her any channel. Liz hurries to the scene to be told that it was a biological attack, with 37 dead. Liz and Wrestler meet Red at his tailor. Red reveals the culprit, Frederick Barnes, a former defense research scientist working for RPAC Systems, where he designed chemical and biological weapons for the government. Red says that 5 years ago Barnes resigned, sold his house, and started selling his creations to the highest bidder, including Red. Red says that if Barnes is now using his creations, he is quite literally the most dangerous man in the world. At the hospital, Liz and Wrestler learned that the victims died of Kerr's disease, a rare condition that causes the veins and arteries to harden until the brain is starved of oxygen. The doctor tells them that normally it takes 10 years for the disease to run its full course, but in this case it took 2 minutes. The doctor also tells them that the disease is extremely rare, but that they have seen 600 cases in the last few months, and that Atlanta Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has opened a case on the issue. Liz says that their suspect is an expert in biological weapons and asks if he could have weaponized the virus. The doctor replies that it is possible in fringe science, fringe theory. However, the suspect would need access to strontium-90, as they found traces of radioactivity on the victims. At a meeting with Harold Cooper, Liz, Wrestler, and Mira, Red tells them he has a good idea who the supplier is and that he operates outside the jurisdiction of the FBI. He then says that he has to catch a plane and invites Liz to accompany him. He tells her that he is going to Cuba. She refuses, saying that she is going to visit Barnes's old research partner. Red says that if she is not there, there is no fun to be had, and for him, if there is no fun to be had, he's not interested. Liz walks straight past Red's car in Demb, while Red gets in. He tells Luli Zhang that he hopes she has good news, as it has been a very depressing morning. She tells him that something he has been looking to buy has just come on the market. He is pleased, and she says that she will proceed. Liz and Wrestler meet with Ann Forrester, but she knows nothing helpful. Her son Ethan has the noticeable signs of early-stage Kerr's disease. Liz questions Ann privately and learns that Barnes is Ethan's biological father. Ann tells Liz that when Ethan was 5 and first developed the disease, Barnes tried to interest the pharmaceutical companies in researching a cure. But because it is so rare, they refused. Liz tells Wrestler that she thinks that Barnes is trying to make Kerr's disease well known so the public will demand that a cure be found. Meanwhile, in Havana, Red meets his contact, Manny, and says that he wants to buy some strontium-90. Red tells Manny that he needs 12 kilograms immediately. Manny says he has just sold his supply to someone else. Red bugs Manny's office and then convinces him to call his previous client with an offer for some of the strontium-90. When Manny calls Barnes, Dem traces the call and Red calls Liz to tell her that Barnes is in the General District Court of Arlington, Va. At the court, Barnes walks into a jury waiting room carrying a similar briefcase and walks out, leaving the case behind. Once outside, he locks the doors with a zip tie before triggering the case via remote control. Wrestler pulls the fire alarm to evacuate the building, and the agents start to search the building. Inside the jury room, people start to walk to the door, while outside Barnes presses his remote and releases the gas. He then mingles with the people leaving the building. Wrestler hears the calls for help from the jury room, and then hears the people inside dying. Wrestler then enters the room and discovers multiple dead bodies, leading to a confrontation at a courthouse where Barnes unleashes another attack. Liz confronts him, but Barnes escapes. Back at the post office, Liz learns that 26 people died at the courthouse, and that the attack was confined to the jury room. Mira wonders about the attack and whether Barnes is conducting a demonstration or an experiment. Cooper calls Liz into his office, where she is told that an administrative panel will review her actions in giving up her weapon in a hostage situation. At the hospital, Barnes, disguised as a nurse, anesthetizes the survivor and performs a bone marrow biopsy on her. Liz calls Red, and he tells her that he is not a gumball machine and hangs up. She calls back and tells him that the reason Barnes escaped was because she messed up. She says that she needs his help. Red makes her repeat that, then tells her that because Barnes is a killer, a survivor represents failure, and so he will visit her. When they arrive at the hospital, they discover what Barnes did to the survivor. Liz then realizes that Barnes was searching for someone with a natural immunity to Kerr's disease, so that he could synthesize a possible cure. She realizes that he will attempt to administer the cure to Ethan. Meanwhile, Barnes has synthesized a possible cure and enters the Forrester home, where he subdues Ann before anesthetizing Ethan. Just as he about to inject Ethan, Liz arrives. They argue about the untested cure. When Barnes attempts to inject Ethan, Liz shoots him to death. Outside, she meets Red, where he once again waxes philosophically. Liz says she needs Red's help with the Blacklist, but he must stay away from her personal life. Red says that a line in the sand can quickly be blown away by the wind. Red then says that if Liz tells him to go, he will disappear. Liz says nothing, so Red says, "See you tomorrow," and gets into his car. When Liz arrives home, she finds that Tom has recreated their first night in the house as a romantic date night. Next day, Red with Lily and Dem goes to the newly purchased house. Red says that he raised his family in the house. When Lily says it's lovely, he says it's not, it used to be. He walks around and reminisces while Dem goes into the cellar. After a short time, Red says, "Time to go," and after checking that Dem has prepared everything, they leave. As they drive away, the house blows up. A cargo plane explodes after takeoff due to a bomb planted by General Ludd, an anti-capitalist group. Elizabeth Keene gets a call from her father telling her that he is in hospital for more cancer tests. She is concerned, but he reassures her that there is nothing to worry about. Harold Cooper and Raymond are negotiating. Red wants access to the FBI's VICAP Violent Criminal Apprehension Program system in return for information on the bomber, since he is not a consultant. With prompting from Liz, Cooper agrees. Red tells them that the General Ludd organization, named after the Luddite movement, is responsible. The founder and leader is called Nathaniel Wolfe. FBI find the names of two suspects for the bombing, Arthur Denning and Roger Guard. Comparing the photographs shows them to be the same person, but not Wolfe. Liz and Ressler raid the Denning-Guard home and find evidence that he is Wolfe and deduce that he has had cosmetic surgery to change his face. Red takes Liz outside where she tells him that he was right about Wolfe, and that Wolfe had changed his face. Red tells Liz that her father is sicker than she thought, as his cancer has returned. Red then tells her that Dr. Abraham Maltz is the cosmetic surgeon that Wolfe would have used. Red and Liz go to Dr. Maltz's office, and Red asks him about Wolfe, when he is not forthcoming with information. Liz says that she is an FBI agent and threatens to have his office raided. Maltz folds under the pressure and reveals Wolfe's new name, Bradley Holland. Red then lambasts Maltz, complaining about the fact that he gave Wolfe up so easily. Elizabeth Keene had not shown her badge. She had only made forceful threats. Red asks what else Maltz has confessed and leaves, stating that Maltz has damaged his credibility. Meanwhile, Wolfe, disguised as a pilot, arms a laptop bomb at an airport. When informed that a first-class seat is available, Wolfe asks the staff member to load his luggage while he retrieves his airline logs from another terminal. The FBI learned that Bradley Holland's pass has just been swiped at Reagan International Airport, and Mira Malik orders all planes grounded and evacuated at Reagan Airport. While Liz and Ressler rush to the airport, Tom Keene calls Liz to say that Aunt June has called and that her father's cancer has spread to his liver and he is in surgery. Aunt June thinks that they should be there. Tom is flying to Nebraska from Dulles immediately, and as Liz can't get away, he'll book her on a flight. The next morning, Ressler and Liz arrive just in time to be knocked over by the blast wave from the explosion. After the return to the post office, Cooper shows a video message where Ludd declares war on corporate America. Cooper states that all commercial flights have been grounded. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Red pays a visit to Sam. Sam and Red talk about memories for a while, before Sam states that he needs to tell Liz the truth. Red tells him that that is not a good idea. While searching the Holland address, Liz and Ressler discover another name, John Horlbeck. Mira presents her research to Cooper. It shows that Wolfe's whole plan involved him becoming John Horlbeck, a truck driver who works for a trucking company subcontracted by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. With all commercial aircraft grounded, he will be moving $500,000 today. They decide that it was all about the theft. When Liz and Ressler are following Wolfe's van, Liz receives a call from her father, where he tells her the true state of his illness. After he hangs up, Red smothers him with a pillow. Red says farewell to his old friend. Tom arrives at the hospital to be told that Liz's father is dead. Outside, whilst having a coffee, a stranger consoles him and says that Liz's father will always be watching over her and that she is stronger than she thinks. The stranger was Red. Liz and Ressler, with the assistance of the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia, intercept Wolfe's armored car. The car backs into alley and there is a gunfight, which allows Wolfe to unload a pallet of money. Wolfe detonates an explosive charge in the middle of the pallet, dispersing. it over a demonstration by General Ludd protesters to cover his escape. Back at the post office, the team determined that the purpose of the theft was to cover the removal of a hard drive containing the program for the new $100 banknote design. Liz calls Red to inquire about which airport Wolf could use, since all commercial flights are grounded. Red hangs up the phone and instructs Dem to tell the pilot they are making an unscheduled stop. At a remote airstrip, Wolf is stopped by Red, who steals the real hard drive. Red states that he wants capitalism to survive. As they leave, Red tells Dem to send the plane's tail number to Keen. When he walks to the hangar to get to his plane, Nathaniel Wolf is arrested by the FBI. During Sam's funeral, Liz confronts Reddington about the hard drive, but he shifts the conversation to her memories of Sam. Raymond is celebrating with some associates in Germany when he sees Ressler arriving. Red greets Ressler and introduces him to his companions as "my man in the State Department," where Ressler informs Red about Elizabeth's detention. When Red inquires why, Ressler explains it's classified, but his task is to find Red. Liz is at home sorting through her father's possessions when she finds a slightly burnt stuffed toy rabbit, which triggers a flashback to a house fire, which causes her to cry. Tom Keen consoles her. Upon arrival at the post office, Red suspects an informant within their team after hearing about the threat on his life and Anslo Garrick's involvement. Red says that Garrick specializes in extracting people from black sites. He cites a previous raid on a CIA site that was blamed on Shining Path, a communist guerrilla insurgent organization. As the discussion unfolds, Garrick's team arrives in a garbage truck and launches an assault on the post office. Meanwhile, Liz arrives for work and enters the elevator. Garrick's team eliminates the exterior guards, installs jamming devices to disrupt communication systems, and cuts the power lines. When the power is cut, Red states they're in. As Ressler guides Red to the box, Cooper commands the evacuation of unarmed personnel and heads a defense team to the armory. He orders the destruction of electronic systems of the computer hard drives while the overwhelmed guards struggle against Garrick's team. On the way to the box, Ressler is shot in the leg by one of Garrick's men, but Red grabs Ressler's gun and kills him, dragging Ressler with him, making a brief stop for medical supplies. Red reaches the box and locks himself and Ressler inside just before Garrick and the rest of his men arrive. In the armory, Cooper tells Aram Majtabai to try and re-establish communications to the outside world. Aram leaves to find the jammers. Liz realizes that something is wrong and climbs out the elevator car and shaft. Once out of the elevator, Liz finds some dead security guards and a radio. She contacts Cooper and is updated on the situation. While Red tends to Ressler's wound, Garrick taunts him about a failed assassination attempt led by Ressler. Red in return taunts Garrick about his wounds from where Red shot him. Garrick's men storm the armory and capture the remaining FBI personnel. Liz and Aram team up and go to find and destroy the jammers, while Red gives Ressler an emergency blood transfusion. Red reveals that he knew about Ressler's assassination attempt. To keep Ressler awake, Red asks him about his former fiancée, Audrey Bidwell. Ressler says that she left him due to his obsession with catching Red for the past 5 years. Liz and Aram successfully locate and dismantle the first jammer, disrupting Garrick's communication interference. Meanwhile, Garrick threatens Cooper, demanding the box be opened, but Red persuades him otherwise. Liz and Aram continue their mission, destroying another jammer, and decide to split up to expedite the restoration of communications. In an effort to convince Red to open the box, Garrick puts a gun to Luli's head. When Red does not open the box, Garrick kills her. When Liz discovers another jammer, she is captured by one of Garrick's men, further complicating matters. Garrick then puts a gun to Dem's head. Dem tells Red that theirs is a friendship forged in this world and the next. Red realizes that Ressler knows the code, but he has fainted through pain. Red and Dem then recite Blacklist together, and the screen goes black as a gunshot is heard. Aram finds and destroys another jammer, restoring communication. Meanwhile, a gunshot echoes through the post office as Anslo Garrick is about to harm Zuma. Aram's intervention saves Elizabeth, but both he and Liz are captured by the Wild Bunch. Taken to the box, Liz becomes leverage for Raymond. Red coerces Ressler into revealing the code to open the box. After their release, Red and Liz are taken by Anslo, escaping in an ambulance. Wrestler, using Red's gun, eliminates the Wild Bunch, while Dem pursues Red and his captors. The FBI SWAT team arrives and neutralizes the mercenaries. In the ambulance, Red instructs Liz to contact Catherine Nemec. During a struggle with Anslow's men, Liz escapes. Once free, she calls Aram, who tracks Red's chip. Liz finds the chip in a bloody glove on the street. Red is now gone. Back home, Liz finds the monitors which were being used to view the live footage from the cameras placed in her home, and is attacked by one of the men watching her and Tom Keene. Liz shoots and kills him. Opting to contact Nemec, Liz is aided by a woman connected to Red. They pinpoint Red's possible location, revealing surveillance on the task force and other personnel, hinting at a mole. Red is then questioned by Alan Fitch, the man who hired Anslow to extract Red. It is revealed that Red has some form of information that incriminates Fitch's organization, and that he has ensured that it will be exposed upon his death. This is the reason that Fitch's organization has allowed Red to live during these 20 years. And now they are nervous at Red's intentions after turning himself into the FBI. Red assures Fitch that he does not intend to expose them. Back at the post office, Liz realizes that there is an abandoned black site close by to the building they had previously invaded, concluding that this is where Red is. Mira supports this, finding the ambulance they escaped in burning within that vicinity. Anslow approaches Fitch about letting him kill Red as his payment for services, which Fitch allows. Anslow reminds Red of his betrayal and says that, although he cannot hurt Red, he can hurt Liz and eventually kill her. Anslow is taken aback by his lack of snide remarks and ridicules him, questioning if he is actually feeling something. Red responds to this with a scissor blade in his neck, stating that he feels regret. The FBI stormed the building, finding that Red disappeared. Diane Fowler tasks Harold Cooper with finding Red, stating, "The only target on the blacklist is Raymond." She also informs him that they have a mole lurking around the FBI and only Red may know who it is. While he is recovering in hospital, Wrestler is visited by his former fiancée Audrey Bidwell. Liz is called by Red from a payphone and asks Red if he's her father, which Red denies. Red departs Liz with a final warning to be careful of her husband and disappears in the crowd of a bustling city. Carl Hoffman gives Karen Brodeen a drug drink at a children's play area. When she wakes, she is tied to a medical-style table and Carl proceeds to inflict various specific injuries on her. Later, she is dumped in her own vehicle and Carl calls 911 as he walks away. Tom tells Liz that he has a job interview in Lincoln, Nebraska, that day. They decide to talk about their ongoing relationship when he arrives back that evening. When Liz learns of the attack on Karen, she asks Harold Cooper to assign her to the case, since she had pursued the attacker during her time in New York. She also believes that because this case is important to her, that Red may contact her with assistance. Cooper conditionally approves, depending on the results of her debriefing about the attack on the post office. The entire team is interrogated or questioned about the raid, with the questioning being observed by Cooper and Diane Fowler. Liz and Wrestler go to meet with Karen's husband and son, where her body is identified. Raymond views Luli Zhang's body and has a flashback of her death. He tells Newton Phillips to ensure that he can disperse the ashes, stating that he wants it done properly. Red then tracks down and interrogates the associate of the apple-eating man who was watching the Keene house, the paramedic who removed the chip from his neck, and the doctor who drugged him prior to Alan Fitch questioning him and monitored his vitals. After interrogating them, he kills them and disposes of them in public areas. Red, he advises Liz to focus on the victims' families, since he does not know about serial killers, but does know about torture. Back at the post office, Liz checks the records and realizes that all of the injuries inflicted on Karen Brodeen had been suffered by her son. When she shares this with Wrestler and Mira, Cooper learns of Liz's communication with Red. Wrestler decides that they need to interview Karen's son. Cooper pulls Mira aside and tells her that she has been cleared by the investigative team. Red pursues the financier behind the post office raid, discovering Henry Kruger's involvement. Based off of how the accomplices he'd interrogated were paid small $5 and $10 bills rather than clean, larger bills, he deduces a nightclub owner called Fyodor had paid them, after confronting him in a restaurant and eliminating his security. He interrogates and kills Fyodor after learning that the money was wired from a financier in the New York branch of Gestalt and Landesbank, Henry Kruger. Ressler and Liz question Michael, Karen's son, and he tells them that his injuries were caused by his mother. Red confronts Henry in front of his home and demands his wire transfer records for Anslo Garrick's operation. Henry asks for time, and Red tells him he will be talking to him the next day. Mira shows Cooper a money trail report that names Louis Coogan as the mole. The picture, however, is of Aram. When the FBI SWAT team storm Aram's residence, they find it deserted. Aram is brought hooded into a room, where the hood is removed and Red is sitting opposite him. Red tells Aram to steal $5,000 from an account and place it in one of his accounts. Red tells him to make the theft untraceable, and that if he has not completed the task by the time Red has stripped, cleaned, and reassembled his gun, he will shoot him. Aram completes the task, then explains to Red how it was done. Red tells him that he is innocent when Aram asks what Red means. Red explains that a payment for the raid on the post office was made to a Louis Coogan, an alias for Aram. Red says that Aram is too intelligent to have accepted payment in such an easily traceable form, so he will find someone else and kill them. Carl attends a support group for abusers and their victims and talks to George, the abusive husband of Melissa, a woman he treated earlier in his job as a nurse in an emergency room. Red returns to see Henry, and this time shoots him in the leg and threatens to have him killed in Papua New Guinea. Unless he tells him who really was paid for the attack on the post office, Henry tells Red the name Newton Phillips, and Red leaves Henry's home. Carl has captured George and strapped him to his medical table, where he forces his mother, who abused him as a child, to watch as he starts to torture George. Liz briefs the team on her findings about the Good Samaritan, how all the victims had the same injuries as members of their families, and that the only link is that Carl Hoffman was the attending nurse. Liz and Ressler check Carl's latest place of work, where they discover that Melissa is the only person treated by Carl recently who was being abused. When they question Melissa, they learn that her husband George is attending a support group. They question the group facilitator and learn that Carl and George left together. Liz and Ressler go to Carl's childhood home, where Liz discovers Carl about to give George a concussion. She orders him to stop, and when he goes to attack his mother, she shoots him dead. Liz visits George in hospital and, with Melissa listening, tells him that if he touches Melissa again, she will finish what Carl started. Aram returns to the post office with the proof of his innocence supplied by Red. Red spreads Luli's ashes into a lake, then turns to Newton Phillips and asks why he betrayed him. Newton Phillips says that they threatened his family and asks Red to look after his family. He also asks Red to make it look like an accident. Red suffocates Newton Phillips using a plastic bag. Fowler meets with Fitch and refuses to give him the name of the mole responsible for the attack on the post office, merely saying that the mole has been neutralized. At her home, Liz thinks Tom has come home and tells him she is not ready to have another fight with him about moving to Nebraska. To her surprise, the visitor is Red, and he tells her that there is still a mole in the FBI, as the leak in his organization did not have the required level of knowledge to plan the raid. He says he has brought her the next name on the blacklist. Raymond is at Elizabeth's house and tells her that he thinks they should next find a person on the blacklist known as the Alchemist. According to Red, he has killed men, women, children, and infants to protect the guilty by killing the innocent. Red says that he has learned he has been hired to protect Peter Matiksek, a mob informant, and his wife. Red also says that he is called the Alchemist because he relies on science to transform one person into another. Meanwhile, Eric Treadle is in a motel room with a blonde woman, and they are starting to make out when she falls unconscious. When she awakens, she has dark brown hair and is on a jet aircraft sitting opposite a man whose passport identifies him as Peter Matiksek. On the floor is a dead woman. When the blonde woman questions the man, he complains about his teeth, looks at his tattooed arms and says he does not have tattoos, is not called Peter, and does not have a passport. Just then, Eric, in skydiving gear, exits the cockpit, opens the door and jumps out. In the cockpit, there are two bodies in the pilot's seats. The aircraft then crashes. At the post office, Mira informs the team about the crash victims' identities, prompting questions about Red's involvement. Liz arranges to meet Red off-site as he suspects another mole within the FBI. Red meets with a hacktivist to uncover shredded government documents related to the mole hunt. Red tells them to reassemble the documents, when the activist refuses due to the sheer amount of paper. Red reminds him that he is bankrolling Julian's operation while he is trapped in the embassy. In a synagogue, Red shares information about the alchemist's methods with Liz. The medical examiner is wrong, as the alchemist can change DNA and dental records, leading to the arrest of Peter Matiksik in Hungary. However, during interrogation, Peter is poisoned by Treadle, posing as his lawyer. The team races to track down Treadle, who is revealed to be a failed medical student and expert in DNA manipulation. He also tells her that because Peter Matiksik nearly hired him to aid in the disappearance, he knows where they can find Peter Matiksik. Liz, Donald Ressler, and Mira Malik arrest Peter Matiksik in a bar in Budapest, Hungary. While waiting for Peter Matiksik, Ressler tells Liz that he has heard from his ex-fiancée Audrey Bidwell and that she wants to have a meeting. When Liz returns home, Tom Keene tells her that he went to Nebraska, but did not attend the interview. He also reminds her that they are hosting a baby shower that evening. Back at the post office, improved medical checks show that the male crash victim's teeth have been altered so that they match those of Peter Matiksik. Liz brings back a list of people that Red claims were helped by the alchemist, while she is briefing the others. Aram tells them that he knows the identity of the woman on the plane, Sarah Jenkins, and that the last time she was online, she accessed a dating site. Aram is in the process of getting a warrant for the site's records. Treadle meets with Catherine Matiksisk, and after learning the name of her husband's lawyer, shoots her and wraps her body in plastic. Ressler is interrogating Peter Matiksik, reminding him that he broke an FBI immunity deal. Ressler offers a new deal in exchange for information on the alchemist. Pretending to be his lawyer, Treadle interrupts Ressler's questioning of Peter Matiksik, and once Ressler has left the room, poisons him with nicotine gum. Liz shows Ressler a photograph of Sarah Jenkins' contact on the dating site, and Ressler recognizes him as the person claiming to be Peter Matiksik's lawyer and rushes. Back to the conference room where Peter Matiksik was meeting his lawyer. He is too late. Peter Matiksik is dead, and the lawyer has disappeared. Mira manages to discover that the person that they are looking for is Eric Treadle, a failed medical student who used to work on the Human Genome Project, and then as an expert DNA witness. 6 years ago, he tried to present false exculpatory evidence in a mafia trial, but was exposed as a fraud and disappeared. He left behind a wife and young daughter. He was traced to a car rental office. While Ressler looks for the car, Liz interviews his wife, Molly, and learns that Treadle has not lived with her since the trial, but regularly visits, much to her chagrin. Liz also learns that Treadle's daughter, Annie, has recently been diagnosed with diabetes. Ressler and Mira find the car, burnt out with the body of Catherine Matiksik in the trunk boot. With prompting from Red, Liz and Ressler start to trace a sequence of numbers on a torn-burnt piece of paper found in the car, to see if the numbers relate to DNA sequencing laboratory equipment. Treadle arranges to meet an actress called Mandy, who he takes to his lab for alteration. A woman finishes reading a file on Tom Keene and introduces herself in a mirror, hinting at hidden intentions. At the baby shower, Liz and Tom argue about the fact that Liz is not taking any time off from work. They are interrupted by Jolene, who tells them that she is a substitute teacher. Liz receives a call from work and leaves. Jolene starts to talk to Tom and invites him to a photography exhibition the following night. Mira is able to trace the numbers to a centrifuge, but when they raid the lab, it is empty. Ressler realizes Treadle is eliminating witnesses and rushes to Molly Treadle's house, finding both her and Annie dead. The next day, Liz arranges a date with Tom, but is interrupted by an emergency. After realizing Annie's resemblance to one of Treadle's victims, she puts out an Amber Alert on Annie Treadle after realizing that he has taken his wife and child. Red is with his document reconstruction team and is shown a memo signed by Mira just as Liz calls for advice. Red recommends tracing Molly and Annie, not Eric. There is not enough time for Red to trace the new identity that Eric will create. Liz traces Annie's insulin pump to a location 70 miles away. Treadle is in a filling station convenience store when the Amber Alert appears on the TV. A random citizen pulls out a gun and a firefight ensues. The daughter is hit with a bullet and severely wounded. The store is surrounded by a police SWAT team, who are going to kill Treadle to rescue the hostages. Keene and Ressler arrive and inform the SWAT commander of the FBI's need to take Treadle alive. Keene ignores the SWAT commander's order and negotiates with Treadle. Eric requests a medic and demands immunity and witness protection for himself. He offers the names of all his clients in return. His wife shoots him when he stalls on the medic, and a police SWAT sniper finishes the job. Liz calls Tom to tell him she will be late. Tom throws the meal he has prepared in the garbage, then goes to the exhibition with Jolene. Ressler goes to meet Audrey, having decided to advise her not to marry her fiancé. But when he arrives, he tells her that they make a great couple, only for Audrey to say that the relationship is on hold because she can't stop thinking about him. They leave the restaurant arm in arm. Ara manages to print a full list of Treadle's clients, which Liz gives to Red. Red puts the list in his pocket, and Liz accuses him of looking for someone on Treadle's list. Red says that he has business to attend to, and leaves. Liz arrives home to an empty house with Chinese takeout, and Tom's phone goes straight to voicemail. Red is waiting in Mira's apartment when she arrives home. When she arrives, he says that he trusts she knows why he is there. She replies that he is there to kill her because she is the mole. A woman staggers down a New York street wearing a hospital gown and blanket. She approaches a police officer and asks about her baby. A man in a truck arrives and explains to the officer that the woman is his sister. When the officer turns his back, the man shoots him, and then turns to the woman and shoots her. Meanwhile, Elizabeth and Tom are at home watching a sonogram of the baby they are intending to adopt. They discuss their plans and check that they have purchased all the required accessories. Reddington informs Liz about the Cypress Agency, a suspicious adoption organization. They investigate and uncover disturbing details, leading to a confrontation with the agency's lawyer, who meets a fatal end. When they take the files back to the post office, Liz says that they have brokered 27 adoptions of infants in the last 3 years, which is a very high figure considering the rarity of international infants available for adoption. Cooper orders full DNA checks on all the children. Reddington advises Liz to delve deeper into the case, urging her to question the relatives of the adopted children. He reminds her that she must break the police mentality that she was trained in at the FBI Academy if she wants to understand the black market. He also advises Liz that if she has the slightest doubt about her husband, she cannot go ahead with the adoption. Ressler reports that 5 women, mothers of 12 of the children, are in the system because they are missing persons. While Ressler and Liz are briefing Cooper, Malik uses Cooper's ID to access the records and download the file, ordering her to begin the tendering process for the security upgrade. Aram Majtabai reports that he has found a file on Caldwell's computer that looks like they are going to kidnap a student named Charlotte Patterson from Georgetown University. Liz and Ressler do not arrive in time to prevent the kidnap, but manage to see the van used to take Charlotte. The van driver and kidnapper and shooter from the beginning meets with Mallory and hands Charlotte over. When Mallory learns that the FBI witnessed the kidnap, he kills the driver. Meanwhile, the body of a woman who had given birth multiple times while sedated is discovered, leading to revelations about Mallory's past and his involvement in a sinister adoption ring. Reddington obtains crucial information from a contact, unraveling the mystery further. Aram's discovery sheds light on Mallory's past, revealing his alias as Charles Lassiter Jr. and his troubled upbringing. Liz and Ressler delve deeper into Mallory's history, interviewing the Lassiters to uncover more about his early life. The Lassiters disclose that Mallory, then known as Michael Shaw, was adopted by them at the age of 7. However, his upbringing was tumultuous, marked by severe attachment issues. When Mallory posed a threat to himself and the Lassiters, they were compelled to return him to the foster care system. This revelation adds a new layer to Mallory's character, providing insight into his psychological struggles and potential motivations. As Liz and Ressler continue their investigation, they piece together Mallory's troubled past to understand the depths of his depravity. Red meets Malik in a park at night, and she gives him the copy of the directive for a mandatory security upgrade and tells him that the person who ordered the upgrade signed page 6. Red turns to page 6, reads the name, and then says to Malik that their business is done. Red meets Liz outside the house of a drug dealer he knows, called Russell. Red insists that he needs hydroxypam, despite Russell stating that hydroxypam is too powerful and most drug users avoid using it. Russell is able to tell Liz that one of the doctors who wrote a prescription for hydroxypam was a fertility doctor. Liz and Ressler visit the Galatia clinic and ask to speak to Dr. Gideon Hadley. Nestor leaves the agents at the desk and then goes to speak to Hadley and Mallory. When Nestor stalls, the agents walk past when Nestor draws a gun. Ressler arrests him. Dr. Hadley shoots at Ressler, who returns fire, killing him. Liz, while searching the premises, finds a room full of unconscious pregnant women. Mallory is hiding in the room and attacks her, managing to disarm her. Ressler shoots him in the arm before he can shoot Liz. At the scene, Cooper tells Liz that all 22 women are healthy and that they are the mothers of the 27 children. While Liz is interrogating Mallory, he tells her that the Lassiters did not want a child and wanted an accessory to smile for their Christmas card. He also says that he is father of all the children whom he gives out to potential adopters. However, it's what Mallory said that hit home to Liz when she realizes the consequences of how the child she and Tom are planning to adopt will be raised as long as their marriage continues to suffer the emotional strain. Back home, Liz makes a heartbreaking decision to halt the adoption process, realizing the complexities of her relationship with Tom. In a shocking turn of events, Reddington eliminates Diane Fowler, uncovering more truths about his past. Red shoots her once in the stomach and explains that she is not one of the good guys and now knows that he knows who she works for, is useless to the bad guys. She offers to tell Red what happened to his family, to which Red responds, "If she knows, then someone else does too," and shoots her dead. Liz is at home alone as Liz grapples with her emotions. Tom is in the front of a car talking with Jolene. Cooper tells Malik, who is looking at the pictures of the rescued women, that he hates working with Reddington because of Red's personality, but that none of what they have achieved would have been possible without him, and then tells Malik to go home. Despite the turmoil, Cooper acknowledges Reddington's indispensable role in their endeavors, signaling a fragile alliance amidst the chaos. Catherine Nemec arrives at Fowler's house, and when Red apologizes for the mess, she replies that she is used to clearing up after him. The intricate web of deceit and espionage continues to unfold as Reddington finds himself entangled in a dangerous game. At a bank in Istanbul, Turkey, a woman gains access to a safety deposit box by claiming to be the widowed Mrs. Reddington. Demb interrupts Raymond during an acupuncture session to tell him that the box in Turkey has been emptied out and the contents replaced with a note. He hands Red the note, and Red opens it to read Windsor Lounge. 8 p.m. The note is signed him. At the Windsor Lounge, Red meets the woman from Istanbul, Madeline Pratt. She explains that she wants him to steal the effigy of Atargates from the Syrian embassy. Red asks about the documents she stole. As Liz and Tom Keene are getting ready for work, Tom is talking on the phone to their friend Ryan. When he hangs up, he tells Liz that Katie, Ryan's partner, is pregnant. This leads to an argument with Liz, and Tom walks out. Liz meets Red, and he tells her about Madeline Pratt, who wants his help to steal the effigy of Atargates from the Syrian embassy. Liz quickly realizes that Red is using the FBI as his personal strike force, rather than risk his syndicate. Further investigation with an antiques dealer Red knows regarding the effigy of Atargates reveals that it is rumored to contain a list of Soviet agents from the Cold War known as the Kungur Six. The Kungur Six are still active and rumored to be responsible for several espionage coups and severe penetrations of US security. Exposing and arresting them is regarded as the holy grail of US counterintelligence. At the post office, Mira is complaining to Harold Cooper about the fact that he has allowed Red to vet everyone who is working there and has removed some people from the site, so that Red would enter the post office. When Cooper meets Red, he ignores Red's small talk and asks about the disappearance of Diane Fowler. Red suggests that he speaks to Agent Malik, as she works for Fowler. Mira says that she has had not contact. Cooper threatens to imprison Red if he discovers evidence that Red was involved in Fowler's disappearance. Red then briefs them about Madeline Pratt. He reveals that Pratt uses her public image as a way to infiltrate her targets. Pratt came to Reed for help since the effigy of Atargates will be returned to Syria soon, and there is no time for a months-long planning session. When Cooper says that he is not going to agree to Red stealing the effigy of Atargates from the Syrian embassy, Red says that he is not a thief. But Liz has the required skills. then states that she can do what Red asks. Liz and Red meet Madeline, and Liz impresses Madeline with her coolness. During this meeting, Liz steals and returns Madeline's cell phone. Madeline then shows Liz blueprints for the Syrian embassy and the location of the secure area where the effigy of Atargates is kept. Pratt will supply an autodialer to override the safe's computer lock. In order to access the safe's location, a copy of the embassy's head of security's swipe card is needed. He goes outside for coffee, wearing the card each day. Liz swipes the card, Aram clones it, and Liz replaces it on his coat. Red and Liz prepare for the reception. Red reveals that Pratt is attending, and that Rasul Khalaf is a Russian mafia member who likely hired her. Red attends the Syrian embassy reception as Liz's escort. Red creates a diversion which allows Liz to access the secure part of the embassy. She waits until the guards begin their security sweep of the hallways before heading for the safe. When Liz opens the safe, the alarm is triggered, but the safe is empty. Madeline and other dignitaries are taken to the safe room, while Red steals and discharges a gun to create another distraction. He then heads for the secure area where Liz has been captured by embassy security staff. In the panic room, Madeline accuses Red of causing the trouble, and while everyone is distracted, she removes the effigy of Atargates from a shelf and hides it in her purse. To Liz's surprise, Red severely overacts before knocking out the guard and rescuing her. At home, Madeline uses her cell phone to make arrangements for the sale of the effigy of Atargates. If the buyer does not retrieve the effigy of Atargates 1 hour after Pratt calls with the location, then Pratt will resell the effigy of Atargates. As she puts the phone down, she removes the top of the statue and smiles. The FBI learned that the Kungar Six are not spies, but nuclear warheads hidden all across the United States by the Soviets. In the early 1980s, and the Russian mafia hired Madeline to steal the statue and retrieve the locations. Mira shows them a schematic of the suitcase nuke that they are looking for based on the time period and smuggling capacity of such an operation. The tension escalates as Madeline Pratt's vendetta against Reddington takes a dangerous turn, leading to a confrontation that puts both of their lives at risk. Despite Reddington's attempts to locate Madeline and recover the effigy of Atargates, they are ambushed and captured by unknown assailants. As Reddington and Pratt find themselves in prison, Pratt reveals that she has sold the effigy of Atargates to the Russians, leaving Reddington to face the consequences of his deception. However, Reddington's resourcefulness is evident as he manipulates Pratt into revealing crucial information about the whereabouts of the warheads hidden by the Soviets. Red tells her that he ran out of gas and so had to walk to his family home on Christmas Eve. When he arrived, he found blood everywhere, and that was all he saw. He says that is the reason he did not keep their rendezvous in Florence. The guards come back and take Red. Madeline calls out that she will tell them where the effigy of Atargates and warheads are located. After telling them, Red appears normally dressed, and she realizes that he has deceived her. When she asks if the story about his family is true, Red changes the subject. Meanwhile, Liz, Ressler, Mira, and the FBI SWAT team engage in a firefight with the Russian mafia at Fort Totten, but their efforts to retrieve the effigy of Atargates are in vain as it is discovered to be empty. However, Reddington's revelation about obtaining the coordinates for the warheads from Pratt offers a new perspective on the situation, leading to a potential trade-off with Cooper agreeing to exchange the effigy of Atargates for the warheads. Amidst the chaos, Liz confides in Ressler about her fears of Tom leaving her, highlighting the personal turmoil amidst the larger crises they face. Ressler's decision to cancel his date with Audrey Bidwell to support Liz underscores the bonds formed amidst the chaos of their work. As Reddington returns to his temporary abode, he finds a Vermeer painting missing, replaced by a note from Madeline says that Red can collect the painting in Florence. Meanwhile, Tom's presence at the teaching conference intersects with Jolene, hinting at further complications in his life. Cooper's investigation into Diane Fowler's disappearance faces interference from Special Agent Martin, signaling a potential cover-up and raising questions about the extent of the conspiracy surrounding Fowler's fate. A bearded, long-haired man wearing an ill-fitting suit is stumbling along a rural Pennsylvania road. The reappearance of Max Hastings, a federal prosecutor who vanished 12 years ago, sheds light on the existence of a mysterious figure known as the Judge, who seeks revenge for wrongly convicted prisoners. Reddington tasks Liz and the team with uncovering the truth behind the judge's activities, leading to a complex investigation. Meanwhile, Reddington enlists the cowboy to investigate Lucy Brooks, revealing a tangled web of connections and intrigue. At the teachers' conference, Tom Keene's behavior becomes increasingly suspicious as he ignores Liz's calls and engages in questionable activities with Jolene. Red arrives at the post office and tells Liz that the reappearance of Hastings indicates that a myth of someone called the Judge, who extracts revenge for wrongly convicted prisoners, is true. According to Red, prisoners write their appeal containing who they feel is responsible for their wrongful punishment, and it passed through the prison system until it ends up in a book depository in Monroe, Virginia. The judge then reviews the appeal, and if it is valid, extracts revenge on the basis of an eye for an eye. Liz briefs the team and says that Red believes that Hastings was incarcerated by the judge because he held back information on an alibi witness for a man convicted of armed robbery called Leonard Debs. It was believed that Hastings had been murdered by the Reynosa cartel, whose leaders he had just indicted. Donald Ressler says that Debs was released 2 months ago after serving 12 years. Liz also says that there are more victims of the judge, including a homicide detective, an appellate court judge, and 2 prosecutors. As the investigation into the judge intensifies, Liz and the team discover a disturbing pattern of wrongful convictions and coerced confessions. Harold Cooper's involvement in one such case raises ethical dilemmas and tensions within the team, especially when it implicates a high-profile political figure like Thomas Connolly. Cooper tells Liz that he is convinced of Rifkin's guilt and he will lose no sleep after watching his execution. Cooper also says that the prosecutor was Thomas Connolly, a candidate for Attorney General. Liz visits Rifkin in prison. He is with Ruth Kipling from the Amnesty Collective, who is serving as his designated spiritual advisor. Rifkin tells Liz that he only confessed after being beaten by Harold Cooper on the orders of Tom Connolly. Tom and Jolene share a drink in a bar and talk. They then start to make out in the men's room, but are interrupted by a child. Jolene gives Tom her room key. At a remote ranch, Frank Gordon receives a call confirming that the kidnapping of Cooper and Connolly will proceed if the execution occurs. He then helps Ruth Kipling feed the prisoners. While the distribution of the food is occurring, one of the prisoners calls Kipling mother. Rifkin is executed, still protesting his innocence. Rifkin's last words are, "Good night, mother." Cooper, Tom Connolly, and Ruth Kipling all witness the execution. As they leave the execution, Cooper and Connolly are kidnapped and taken to Kipling's ranch. Liz calls Red and informs him of the situation. Ruth Kipling emerges as a key player in the judge's operation, sentencing Cooper and Connolly to death for their role in Rifkin's case. Reddington intervenes, revealing new evidence that sheds light on the truth behind Rifkin's confession and ultimately persuades Kipling to surrender. At Kipling's ranch prison, she brings Cooper out of his cell to a makeshift electric chair, preparing for his judgment. Red calls Liz, and she tells him that they know the location. He tells her that he has new information on the Rifkin case. Ressler and SWAT find the ranch. However, Kipling decides to go on with Cooper's execution. Liz tells Ruth that someone with high-level access is coming with new information. Red enters the building where the prisoners are being held. He tells Kipling that Rifkin and his Taliban friends had massacred the villagers because an American agent had been hiding in the village. The U.S. Army had extracted the agent hours before the Taliban arrived, and fearing bad publicity for leaving the village to its fate, covered up the existence of the agent. Red convinces Kipling to surrender because her overriding concern was not revenge, but justice. Although Rifkin's confession was beaten out of him, it was a true confession. To support his story, Red shows Kipling the official classified Pentagon report on the incident. At the post office, Cooper tells Liz to send the other appeals that were sent to Kipling to the Department of Justice. Cooper asks Liz if she is going to report his actions concerning Rifkin. She replies that there has been enough judgment concerning others. The resolution of the judge's case prompts reflections on justice, morality, and the complexities of the legal system. Cooper grapples with the consequences of his actions, while Reddington extends a cryptic offer to aid Admiral Richard Abraham. Meanwhile, Tom's loyalty and motives come into question as he navigates his complicated relationship with Liz and Jolene. Reddington's strategic maneuvers and Liz's determination to uncover the truth drive the narrative forward. setting the stage for further intrigue and revelations in their ongoing battle against criminal elements and hidden agendas. A man escapes from the Ebashiri prison near Hokkaido, Japan, sets off a chain of events that culminates in tragedy and revenge. FBI agent Sam Ramo, who is in Tokyo, Japan, greets his wife. He says that they must stay hidden for a few more weeks and goes to review his finances. Later that evening, he meets the man who escaped and identifies him as Mako Taneda, a Yakuza boss whom Ramo arrested while hunting for Raymond in Japan. Taneda talks about honor and then says that if Ramo commits seppuku, he will leave his family alone. Ramo agrees and calls himself. In Washington, Tom comes down for breakfast to find Liz talking to Lucy Brooks about the fact that she is thinking of moving to Washington permanently and asking if Liz can recommend a realtor. Tom and Jolene pretend that they do not know each other. At the wake for Agent Ramo, Wrestler meets up with his old friends Bobby Jonica and Pete McGuire. All three agree that the idea of Sam committing ritual suicide is very strange. Bobby theorizes that it was caused by the actions of Reddington. Wrestler leaves the wake and goes straight to the post office, where he asks Liz to put him in touch with Red. Liz states that Red is looking for him and asks what is happening between the two of them. Red is watching a ballet rehearsal and makes a substantial donation to the company for a special performance on the 22nd of the month. The dancer accepting the donation says that it will be ready like last year. After she leaves, Demb informs Red that they have found Agent Wrestler. Red and Wrestler meet in a country park where Wrestler asks about Ramo's death, and Red tells him that it was probably Mako Taneda who was responsible. Wrestler is suspicious and asks Red if Taneda has double-crossed him, and now Red wants his head in a box. Red denies this and tells Wrestler that Taneda is probably hunting him. As Taneda infiltrates the United States under an alias, he leaves a trail of death and destruction in his wake. McGuire's mysterious demise and Taneda's pursuit of vengeance put the entire task force on high alert, prompting a frantic search for Taneda and his associates. Meanwhile, Tom and Jolene navigate their complex relationship amidst the chaos, with Tom's past catching up to him and threatening to unravel his carefully constructed facade. Tom meets Jolene at his makeshift headquarters inside a lock-up garage. Jolene only wants information about what he has been doing. But an agitated Tom explains that he had to go dark after being stabbed and denied ownership of his escape plan. Tom debriefs Jolene about his findings at the post office and records of Reddington's financial payments to Liz's adoptive father, bitterly stating that he could have put a bullet in Reddington when he was sitting next to him at a park, only to be rebuffed by Jolene that this was not Tom's mission. While Jolene and Tom wrap up their debriefing, Wrestler's confrontation with Taneda ends in heartbreak as Audrey falls victim to Taneda's brutality. The loss drives Wrestler to the brink of darkness as he seeks justice and closure, grappling with his grief and guilt over Audrey's death. Reddington's involvement adds another layer of intrigue to the unfolding drama, with his enigmatic maneuvers and cryptic warnings guiding Wrestler on his path of vengeance. Sympathetic to Wrestler's pain, Reddington gives Wrestler a lead to a residential house in Columbia Heights, serving as an underground hospital. Red warns Wrestler that the path of vengeance requires accepting a personal darkness that never vanishes. With the aid of Jonica, Wrestler raids the house and shoots the wounded surviving henchman in the leg to get the location of Taneda, being directed to a nearby club. Wrestler and Jonica are successful in capturing Taneda. Meanwhile, the cowboy gets captured by Tom while tailing Jolene. Liz phones Red about her findings and is told that Mako's brother Eiko is actually dead and not missing. At the post office, Liz later deduces that Jonica was posing as Eiko after coming across a report that Jonica was escorting Eiko prior to his demise. Amidst the chaos and bloodshed, Liz finds herself torn between loyalty to her team and her growing suspicions about Reddington's motives. As the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, Liz must confront the truth about those closest to her and the dangerous game they're all playing. Concurrently en route to Wrestler's remote cabin, Taneda tells Wrestler that when he got arrested, he never heard from his brother. Jonica repeatedly attempts to dissuade Mako from talking, only for Wrestler to piece together that Jonica was a dirty agent right after Jonica shoots Taneda in the chest. Wrestler grabs the steering wheel, causing a crash. Tom tells Jolene to abort her mission, saying that she is already compromised through the actions Red performed in relation to Wu Jing and the Alchemist. and feeds Jolene a cover story to tell Liz about her disappearance. However, the cowboy tells Jolene not to listen to him, stating that he would kill the both of them if she follows Tom's instructions. After Jolene has left the voice message, Tom attempts to stun her, only for a brief hand-to-hand fight to take place. Tom gains the upper hand and suffocates her before executing the cowboy. Shortly after recovering, Wrestler picks up the ceremonial knife and pursues Jonica. A cornered Jonica attempts to use his friendship with Wrestler to talk him out of killing him. Wrestler instead berates Jonica for bringing Canada's wrath on everyone on the team, as well as blames him for Audrey's death while admitting his working relationship with Reddington, giving Jonica the ultimatum of either committing seppuku or being shot by Wrestler. Liz and Malik catch up to Wrestler, with Liz barely talking Wrestler down. An enraged Wrestler fires several rounds in Jonica's direction, intentionally missing him. Jonica weakly apologizes to Wrestler before committing seppuku while the latter walks away. Upon returning to the overturned SUV, Wrestler finds it empty. While Tom cleans up his kills by burying their corpses in the woods, a mournful Wrestler sifts through Audrey's belongings, finding a pregnancy test kit. Before breaking down, Wrestler receives a consolation package from Dem with a note attached by Red about recovering from his vengeful mission, with the package containing Canada's decapitated head. Liz enters the shower with Tom, telling him about the voice message she received from Jolene. At the theater, the dancers gossip about Red, stating that he has given numerous donations in exchange for a special performance every year. Red watches a performance of the ballet production he funded, while holding a copy of the performance brochure dated 22 March 1987. Reflecting on the time his daughter was the star of this particular performance years earlier. As the dust settles and the casualties mount, the survivors are left to pick up the pieces and confront the demons of their past. With secrets and betrayals lurking around every corner, they must navigate the treacherous landscape of lies and deceit, knowing that the road to redemption may be paved with more bloodshed and heartache. Nathan Platt is working alone in his research office when the computer network is breached. He hurriedly removes a tablet computer from a safe and goes to his car, calling a contact to say that he is headed to the backup site with the prototype. An unknown hacker causes his car airbag to inflate, resulting in the car crashing. The unknown hacker removes the prototype and flees the scene. Raymond and Dem meet Catherine Nimmick in the forest, and she shows them the bodies of Lucy Brooks and the cowboy in the grave where Tom Keene buried them. Red tells Nimmick to leave the bodies where they are, as he already knows who murdered them. He then calls 911 to report a missing person from Dem's cell phone. At their home, Elizabeth gives Tom an Uncle Flippo flashlight, an item with which a school teacher should be familiar. Suddenly, the police arrive to question them about the disappearance of Jolene Parker, who is known to be a substitute teacher at Tom's school. Tom and Liz say that they have not seen or heard from her since Liz received a call from her saying that she was moving to Dayton, Ohio with her fiancé, whose name they do not know. As Liz and Tom grapple with the sudden appearance of the police and questions about Jolene's disappearance, Reddington delves deeper into the mystery surrounding the stolen prototype and the notorious hacker Ivan, where a tense confrontation ensues, ultimately leading to a cunning deception to extract information. Liz states that the task force will not aid Red in a vendetta. Red informs Liz that until now, Ivan has only done business in Russia, and the fact that he has now ventured into the U.S. is alarming and dangerous. Meanwhile, the task force races against time to track down the unknown hacker responsible for the breach and the subsequent chaos. As they unravel the hacker's trail of cybercrimes, they uncover unexpected connections and motivations behind the attacks. Liz, Wrestler, and Aram arrive at the junkyard where the wrecked vehicle was brought. While Aram sets up his equipment, Liz asks Wrestler why he is working and not taking time off to grieve. Wrestler says that his job takes his mind off Audrey Bidwell. Aram discovers that the airbag was deployed before the crash, and that a message, which spells Ivan in binary, was intentionally left in the content addressable network bus. They also discover the casing that housed the stolen prototype. Then, other government agents arrive and demand that they step away from the car. Cooper and his entourage arrive on the scene. Cooper questions Agent Galarza of the NSA, and he agrees to give them information on the suspect in return for information on what was stolen. Galarza takes them to the headquarters for Project Skeleton Key, and introduces them to David Fisher, the lead engineer on the project. Fisher explains that the skeleton key has been in development for 5 years and is a revolutionary cyber warfare weapon designed to override entire infrastructures. He states that it can infiltrate the most secure networks in minutes. The suspect stole a prototype of the weapon. Liz relays the new information to Red, who remarks about the use of tax dollars and the government's failure in preventing the situation. Liz remarks that it will be a challenge to reach out to Russia and locate Ivan. Red reveals that Ivan is currently in Minsk, Belarus. He tells Liz of a plan to get Ivan to talk, which involves creating a problem for Ivan and solving it. At a restaurant in Minsk, Red finds Ivan and sits down at his table.
He uses his FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives Wanted poster as a calling card.
Red reminds Ivan of the time when he stole approximately $5,000 from one of Red's bank accounts in the Grand Cayman, and states that he has come to collect the money plus interest. Ivan initially does not cooperate, until Red informs him that an arrest order has been issued for him, and that U.S. agents are en route to detain him. Red offers Ivan safe travel out of the country to evade the authorities, which Ivan eventually accepts. They move into the kitchen, where Red forces Ivan to transfer $8,000 into one of his accounts. As they make their way outside, Wrestler spots them and starts running towards them. Ivan quickly gets into a waiting vehicle, while Red pulls out a gun and supposedly shoots Wrestler. As Red leaves with Ivan, Mira walks up to Wrestler, who is lying on the ground. Wrestler asks if Ivan bought it, and it becomes apparent that the whole event was a ruse. Back at their home, it is the middle of the night. Tom walks down the stairs and approaches Liz, who is researching Jolene on her laptop. She tells him that she has discovered that Jolene's real name is Lucy Brooks, and that she is a convicted felon. Liz is unsettled over the fact that she let Lucy into their home and bedroom. Tom comforts her, saying that she could never have known her real identity. As the investigation into Lucy Brooks's disappearance and the skeleton key theft intensifies, the task force at the post office, led by Aram, continues to piece together clues about the mysterious hacker and the broader implications of the cybercrimes. Meanwhile, Red interrogates Ivan about the stolen skeleton key, but Ivan denies involvement and reveals his own concerns about potential threats from unmanned aerial vehicle drones. Red offers to assist Ivan in identifying the true culprit behind the theft. Back at the post office, the team discusses the hacker's extensive cyber activities, including breaches into sensitive government networks and unauthorized changes to benefit payments. Mira and Wrestler follow up on a lead related to increased benefit payments, leading them to suspect Mrs. Lee's grandson as the potential hacker. The scene shifts to a high school classroom, where a remarkably intelligent teenage boy completes a math test in just 15 minutes, hinting at his exceptional abilities and potential involvement in the cybercrimes. The investigation leads to a surprising revelation about the identity of the hacker, culminating in a dramatic showdown at a high school where Harrison Lee, the teenage prodigy behind the cyberattacks, is finally apprehended. Liz goes home and notices Uncle Flippo in the pictures from Tom's lair, and she realizes that Tom is not what he purports to be. She then goes to see Red and listens to the music box that Red fixed while remembering a fire and her dad. She realizes that Red knows about her past and hugs Red, who kisses the top of her head. The intricate web of deception and danger continues to unravel as Elizabeth and Raymond delve deeper into the mysteries surrounding Tom and the shadowy figures pulling the strings behind the scenes. A woman takes a taxi to LaGuardia Airport. Partway through the route, the driver swerves and begins driving dangerously, zigzagging through oncoming traffic, much to the woman's dismay. The taxi driver says, "I'm sorry, Miss Mitchell," identifying that he knew her before their journey. The taxi driver then kisses a photograph on his dashboard, before driving into a heavy vehicle, killing them both. Later, a man is shown investigating the crash. He shreds a photograph of Miss Mitchell and tells somebody on the phone he would like to make a wire transfer. He then blends a smoothie and takes of his clothes, revealing a very scarred body. He then removes a prosthetic nose. Elizabeth and Raymond are secretly spying on Tom Keene. They are working out the connection between him, his brother, Lucy Brooks, and who is employing them. Liz asks Red what he knows. Red tells Liz that he has been monitoring Tom since he entered her life. Liz conjectures that Tom targeted Liz because of Red. Red concurs with the speculation. Liz asks how she and Red are connected, but Red refuses to answer. Red gives Liz the Blacklist case file, telling her she needs a case to appear normal to Tom. He suggests the taxi collision was murder, worked by a man known as the Undertaker, a broker of death. A man who convinces ordinary people to kill on his behalf, with murder-suicide being his signature method. Elsewhere, we see the Undertaker take another victim. A woman named Dee Torres asks a man at a gas station if he is Bennett Cochran. The man confirms that he is. The woman apologizes and implies that her family was threatened before setting them both on fire, killing them. Liz brings the case to the FBI. Cooper suggests starting the investigation with the killers' families. In the wake of the Undertaker's deadly schemes, Liz and Red uncover a connection between the victims, all of whom were terminally ill and coerced into committing murder-suicides. Both killers also showed signs of mental problems that would allow the police to close their cases as accidental. Cooper suggests investigating the financing, the source of the taxi driver's uncle inheritance. The Undertaker is shown choosing a new victim. He offers to take care of the man's wife and daughter. The man indicates interest. Tom's efforts to maintain a facade of normalcy and intimacy with Liz escalate as he suggests renewing their vows. Liz goes along with the plan, reaching out to their friends and even inviting Tom's brother, Craig, to join the ceremony. Tom feigns surprise at Craig's presence, but their private conversation hints at deeper tensions and concerns. While Tom and Craig discuss Liz's increasing suspicion, Liz seizes an opportunity to gather evidence by discreetly retrieving a champagne glass used by Craig. Recognizing the potential significance of this piece of evidence, Liz hands it over to Dem for further analysis, hoping it might shed light on the truth behind Tom's secrets. As they follow the trail of financial transactions, they begin to unravel the Undertaker's payment network, ultimately leading them to the next intended victim, Danny Moss. The FBI realize that he is the next victim. Moss is at a political rally. It appears he has been given the job to kill the politician of Mr. Right? The FBI stop him just in time. In San Salvador, Red visits a professor named Vlad Cvetko and asks him to analyze the champagne glass of Craig Keene using an advanced DNA technique. He finds Craig's true name, Christopher Molly, and asks Liz to find him. Liz follows him into his hotel room and handcuffs him to the sink in the bathroom. Ressler calls Liz to leave, but Red and Dem arrive to interrogate Molly. As the FBI delves deeper into their investigation, they uncover a common thread among the killers: life insurance policies with green glades. Liz takes charge of the situation, asking Ressler to cover for her while she addresses the matter with Tom. Meanwhile, at the Green Glades offices, the FBI finds that the killers' policies have mysteriously vanished from the computer system, indicating a concerted effort to cover tracks. Milton Bobbitt, known as the Undertaker, observes these developments from afar as he manages to escape, prompting the FBI to intensify their efforts to locate him. Red takes Christopher Molly to a museum in an attempt to coax information from him, but Molly remains tight-lipped. However, Dem's unexpected presence with Molly's mother prompts a change in tactics. Liz joins them at the hotel room, hoping to extract valuable information from Molly. Back at the post office, Ressler uncovers a crucial lead. The last three of Bobbitt's killers were somehow linked to a research project involving type 2 diabetes. This discovery adds a new dimension to the investigation, suggesting a deeper motive behind the murders orchestrated by Bobbitt. Tom calls Craig, who claims everything is fine and that he needs 2 hours and will call Tom back. Tom states that he is the person accountable to Berlin. Red and Lizzie then ask about Berlin. Who or what bank is in Berlin? Molly does not answer and jumps out of the window to his death. At a graveyard, Bobbitt has led his last victim to the site of his death. He reveals that he plans to commit murder-suicide. The FBI arrive and arrest Osborne, the victim. Bobbitt kills himself with an explosion. Later, Cooper allows Red to view Bobbitt's client list. He asks Red if it was the reason he brought the FBI the case. Red confirms. Lizzie has looked through the surveillance of her house from the Apple Man. She has noticed that Tom hid a key under a lamp in the house. She makes a copy of the key and puts it back where she found it. As she turns around, Tom is there, who may have seen her moving the lamp back. As she goes to walk away, Tom puts his hand on her shoulder and says they are newlyweds, to which they kiss begrudgingly. As the stakes escalate and the danger intensifies, Liz's resilience and determination are put to the test, leading to a climactic confrontation with Tom and the realization that her world may never be the same again. In China, where a prisoner is deliberately injured, some of the nurses are clearly up to something and then covertly transported. The Chinese commander reviews the video recordings and realizes that the prisoner was deliberately injured. He orders a lockdown, but the prisoner has been transferred and revived in another vehicle and told, "You will be in America by morning. We are taking you to Washington, D.C." Meanwhile, the Serbian Pavlovich brothers receive a job offer that involves returning to D.C., putting their plans with Hezbollah on hold. Back in the States, Liz is suspicious of Tom and tries to gather information about the Jolene Parker investigation while discreetly tracking him using a battery replaced with a tracking device. She confides in Red about her suspicions regarding Tom's involvement in Jolene's death, which Red already knew but hadn't disclosed to her. Red says that he already knew and did not tell her for fear that the knowledge would change her behavior towards Tom. But it is clear that about the only thing they know for sure is that Tom and Jolene worked for the same organization. Then Red says, "But Tom is not the reason I'm here. The Pavlovich brothers are back in town." At the post office, we learn that the Pavlovich brothers are the same people that previously grabbed the general's daughter Beth Riker in Pilot, a snatch and grab extraction team with no political agenda, whom Reddington says now have a contract in the U.S. The FBI learns that the Pavlovich brothers are targeting Xiaoping Lai, a Chinese scientist with crucial knowledge about a secret germ warfare program called White Fog. To come after Xiaoping Lai, the Chinese prisoner whom the CIA, posing as nurses, had extracted from a labor camp 18 hours ago. Because she was an immunologist specializing in diseases who 4 months ago signaled the CIA with a willingness to disclose secrets about a secret Chinese weapons program, and then was imprisoned 1 month ago. When the FBI figures out the Pavlovich brothers are going to attempt an interception, they try to change the travel route. Despite efforts to intercept the scientists, the brothers successfully hijack a CIA helicopter and extractor. As the investigation continues at the post office, Ressler informs Mira about the burning helicopter and the call from the Director of National Intelligence. Mira explains that the Chinese prisoner was involved in the White Fog germ warfare program and had access to critical designs, making her capture a significant intelligence opportunity for the CIA. Meanwhile, Red contacts Liz and reveals that the Pavlovich brothers have successfully obtained the scientists. Liz, still preoccupied with Tom, uses the excuse of meeting Red for a lead on the Chinese case to pursue her personal investigation. She notices Tom entering the National Archives and suggests following him. But Red subtly indicates that his operatives are already tracking Tom, implying that Liz now has access to their resources. Red informs Liz about Tom's actions and whereabouts, but Liz's emotional turmoil leads her to impulsively follow Tom herself. She observes Tom exchanging a package with another man and realizes that Tom has discovered her surveillance. Later, when Tom confronts Liz at home, she denies being at the National Archives, but Tom sees through her lie. Realizing that Liz knows the truth about him, Tom escapes, leaving Liz devastated and determined to hunt him down. Later, Tom is seen walking down a street. He calls his bank contact and asks for an evac route. He tells his handler that she knows. Back home, an upset Elizabeth Keene is talking to Reed about her husband leaving, to which Raymond Reddington responds that her husband never existed in the first place. Liz reveals how truly upset she is about Tom's betrayal, having been married to him for 2 years. Red explains to Lizzie that to Tom, it was just business, and that in order to get to the bottom of her situation, she needs to be more patient and less emotional. Liz angrily refuses to be patient and says that she is going to hunt Tom down with or without Reddington's help. A shocking scene in Prague, where a politician, Emil Dusek, finds himself in a compromising situation after being drugged and framed for the murder. The politician wakes to find himself in a hotel room next to the dead body of a male escort. A television plays the breaking news of the murder and shows Mr. Dusek announcing his withdrawal from the Senate to defend himself as the chauffeur watches and smiles. Raymond is seen meeting with Nico Demakis about the Prague matter, sharing that he suspects it's the work of the Kingmaker. Red is interested in who retained the Kingmaker, to which Nico replies that he knows and that it's the same person who has been placing a siege on Red's interests. He says that Red's friends are whispering, and they remain loyal for now, but they won't forever. Red tells Nico to relay this message, shut the hell up. Elizabeth Keene views the photos that Tom Keene had led her to, which show Red at the hospital where her adoptive father, Sam Scott, had died. Elizabeth Keene confronts Red about Tom's whereabouts, but Red redirects her attention to the urgent matter of apprehending the Kingmaker. Despite Liz's persistence, Red insists that she focus on the task at hand. We cut to the Kingmaker meeting a man named Patrick Chandler on a bridge. They are planning some sort of car accident off the bridge. Patrick seems nervous and asks for details about what's going to happen, so the Kingmaker reminds him of the bold life he has requested and that it would be a shame if he didn't go through with the plan. Patrick says that he will be on the bridge at 4 p.m. As the FBI investigates, they narrowly miss capturing the Kingmaker, who has already left his hotel room. Red confronts Alan Fitch, seeking assistance in dealing with the threats against him. Red says they need each other to survive, and then threatens him with some information he possesses that would destroy Fitch's group, saying he keeps it secret. But if the person attacking him gets it, they might not be as discreet. Fitch initially refuses, but eventually agrees to cooperate to protect their mutual interests. Meanwhile, the Kingmaker orchestrates a deadly car accident to further his political agenda, leaving behind a grieving husband and father, Patrick Chandler. Patrick is able to save his daughter, but not his wife. Liz and the team investigate the crash, suspecting foul play. The team investigates Patrick back at the post office. They find a sparkling resume and background, but are confused because he isn't running for anything and ask why he would murder his wife. Liz says husbands lie all the time, and Ressler notices her attitude. Aram catches Liz and tells her that he had the footage she had asked him to subpoena. Aram uncovers surveillance footage of Red at the hospital where Liz's adoptive father, Sam, died, and they find out he had been there an hour before Sam had died, raising questions about Red's involvement in Sam's death. Liz grapples with the revelation and confronts Red about his actions. The team located the van belonging to Destination Plumbing owned by Arturo Ruiz and head there. The Kingmaker is already there talking to Arturo, who complains that the Kingmaker lied to him and he has to live with killing that woman. But the Kingmaker is mad at Arturo for leaving and kills him. Meanwhile, Fitch meets with his alliance and tries to convince them to help Red, but they don't seem too interested in that. Fitch calls for a vote to be had. Liz and Ressler reach Arturo's shop and find him dead. Patrick meets the Kingmaker and says he thinks they should stop. The Kingmaker disagrees and tells him they're moving on to the next phase. At Leclerc's pawn shop, Red, Liz, and Dem gather intel and learn that the Kingmaker was spotted at a hotel called the Brixton. Armed with this information, Liz and Ressler investigate further and discover a breaching plan for the home of Albert Mitchell, a U.S. Senator. Harold Cooper connects the dots, realizing that the Kingmaker's plan involves assassinating Senator Mitchell to trigger a special election, positioning Patrick as the frontrunner for the seat. This revelation underscores the urgency of stopping the Kingmaker before he can carry out his deadly scheme. As the FBI closes in on the Kingmaker, they discover his plan to assassinate a U.S. Senator. Despite their efforts to prevent the murder, the Kingmaker succeeds in his mission, leading to a confrontation where Ressler fatally shoots him. Fitch meets with Red again and says his alliance won't help, and that some members think his threat is a bluff and they should kill him now. Red responds that he will win the war anyway, and all that this has led to is Red not being there for Fitch when they need help later. Elizabeth phones Red to inform him about the Kingmaker. Red says he wants 10 minutes with the man to find out who ordered the Prague incident. But Liz tells him that's not possible because the Kingmaker is dead. Ressler and Elizabeth arrest Patrick Chandler for conspiracy to commit murder. Liz then gets a call from Aram that Sam was found about 45 minutes to an hour after he had actually died, causing her to realize he was there when he did die. Liz meets Red, who tells her that he did kill Sam. Elizabeth calls Red a monster and says that she won't work with him anymore, signaling a significant shift in their dynamic. Liz decides to distance herself from Red and seeks solace with Ressler, a man, Paul Blankenship, coughing up blood at a bank. He collapses and dies, prompting a quarantine due to fears of contagion. Elizabeth confides in Ressler at his house, revealing the full extent of her involvement with Tom and her determination to locate him. Ressler agrees to assist her, but insists that she must disclose everything to the FBI. Elizabeth complies, recounting her history with Tom since their first meeting in 2010 and divulging details about his mission to gather intelligence on Raymond. She admits her belief that Tom's ultimate goal was to infiltrate the post office. Elizabeth also reveals information about Tom's associates, including Christopher Molly, Lucy Brooks, also known as Jillian Parker, and Gina Xanatakos, who recently escaped from prison. When questioned about why she didn't turn Tom in earlier, Elizabeth explains that she wanted to uncover the full extent of his agenda and understand the depth of the conspiracy surrounding her. Meanwhile, Tom runs down a guy Red has tailing him and forces him to call Reddington and say he lost the tail. The guy tries to bargain for his life, saying he could work for the people Tom works for. But Tom says, "You don't choose Berlin. Berlin chooses you." Then he kills the guy and cuts off his distinctive spider tattoo. Elizabeth attempts to resign from her position with Cooper, expressing her frustration with the Bureau's suspicions regarding her involvement with her husband. While Cooper reassures her of his belief in her innocence, however, he emphasizes Elizabeth's importance as a crucial link to Raymond Reddington. Elizabeth declares her refusal to communicate with Reddington any further, citing her belief that he was responsible for her father's death. Throughout their conversation, Reddington remains present, attempting to offer them a case and warning Cooper about imminent danger. Despite her reluctance, Elizabeth eventually agrees to take on the case presented by Reddington, stating that she will complete it before leaving her position for good. Red shares his belief with the task force that Blankenship's death is part of a larger plot against him, involving a deadly virus named Cullen. While he is talking, we see a man in a lab fill syringes filled with a liquid exactly like the one Paul had in his pocket. Red and Liz investigate the virus with the CDC and visit an expert, Dr. Bruce Sanders, seeking answers. Red offers Liz a decoded copy of Tom's communications with Berlin, but she remains wary. Liz switches seats with Dem so she doesn't have to sit near Red. The team at the post office discovers that the syringe found on Paul contained an antidote for the virus, despite the CDC's claim that such an antidote doesn't exist. They also uncover text messages on Paul's phone instructing him to carry out his job for more treatments on the 30th, revealing that extortion, not a viral outbreak, is occurring. Ressler concludes that Paul chose to die rather than comply with the orders he was given, and predicts that Berlin will seek a replacement. This prediction proves true when another man, Mr. Klein, is shown coughing while watching a video informing him that he has been infected. He is promised treatment to survive as long as he follows instructions, indicating that the extortion scheme is continuing. In the hospital, Red and Liz encounter Dr. Sanders, who begins discussing a seemingly unrelated topic, Space Agent UD-40-26, frustrating Liz. She storms off, feeling that Reddington is wasting her time. Special Agent Walter Gary Martin tells Cooper that if Liz walks, the task force will be done and Red will be put in a dark hole forever. He also mentions that Liz and Cooper's futures with the Bureau are also in doubt given recent events and the way the task force is ending. Upon returning, Liz learns from Mira and Ressler that Dr. Sanders does indeed hold the key to the antidote for the Cullen virus. She reluctantly approaches Red for his help in convincing Dr. Sanders to cooperate. Liz cleverly observes a detail on the nurse's badge, leading Aram to identify the man as Dr. Nikolaus Vogel. Ressler and Liz hurry to Vogel's residence, discovering the lab containing the antidotes and arresting him. Cooper urges Liz to stay, emphasizing her strength, but she remains determined to leave. Liz resorts to infecting Vogel with Cullen to coerce him into providing information. Liz starts reviewing old cases and realizes that all of them have been connected. She explains to the team that Red wasn't using them to expand his empire. He was using them to protect himself from his enemy, not a place, but a person who is coming for him today. Dr. Vogel gives them the names of the people he infected, and the team connects them all to airports, realizing that a jailbreak is about to happen. Liz tells Cooper she's made a mistake trying to resign, but he says it's too late for Reddington, and they're going to take him. She rushes off to save him. Aram uses video from Dr. Vugel's laptop to figure out the plan as the 5 infected individuals smoothed the way for Berlin's plane to land. Unfortunately for Berlin, Mira and Ressler show up guns blazing and force him to abort the landing. Liz gets to Reddington, tells him it's a setup and that he needs to leave. He senses she has a change of heart and stays so she can tell him about it. Military jets are scrambled to shoot the plane down, while the hooded man on the plane orders the pilot to land the plane on the East River. The FBI shows up at the park and surround Reddington. Red and Liz watch the burning plane fly over and crash nearby. Red says, "Now it begins." The aftermath of the plane crash unfolds as prisoner interviews reveal chaotic events on board. One particularly large prisoner, chained to a guard, gruesomely severs his own hand to escape. Meanwhile, Reddington is transferred to an FBI cell, where he is chained down. Meanwhile, the task force is scrambling to figure out what's going on, where the passengers all are, and what the plane was. The plane flew undetected across American airspace out of Bogota, and passengers on board are so far identified as criminals. Interviews with captured ex-passengers are of them claiming to have been kidnapped and put on the plane. None of them knows who any of the others were, and don't know any Berlin. But that a giant Russian prisoner with a hood was brought on board and seemed to be in charge. Tom meets with a man in a rundown apartment and gives him a list of the people on the task force. Elizabeth Keene demands to meet with Reddington. Reddington is informed he has a visitor, who turns out to be Alan Fitch. Fitch doesn't agree with the decision his colleagues made about cutting ties with Reddington, and is unhappy about the intelligence failure on the plane. He tells Reddington he's going to give him a chance. He's arranged the transfer, and the rest is up to him. Fitch warns that the task force is being targeted. Reddington is being transferred in an SUV by Walter Gary Martin, who has been ordered to help him escape. He knocks out the FBI agents in the car and escapes in the subsequent crash. He calls Elizabeth from a payphone and warns her the task force is being targeted. Mira and Ressler are already in the field at a dance club, where they have a lead on one of the escaped prisoners. They split up. While Ressler captures their target, Mira is ambushed by a man with a beard. Her throat.
Elizabeth arrives and finds her bleeding out.
Elizabeth visits Reddington to tell him Mira is dead. As Ressler interrogates the captured prisoner, they uncover that the plane operation was orchestrated by the SVR, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Agency, as a covert mission to repatriate Russian fugitives. Cooper involves Reddington in the investigation, leading to a confrontation with the Russian ambassador to obtain the passenger manifest. The task force uses the manifest. One of the bodies is burned and is being identified, but there are 3 people still missing, one of whom must be Berlin. Elizabeth and Ressler visit a guard in the hospital for information. The guard in the hospital claims none of the 3 prisoners they have pictures of are Berlin. He tells them what he's heard about Berlin, that the man was a Red Army colonel, then KGB agent, who was notorious for sending enemies to Siberia work camps. However, rumors circulated that his daughter had fallen in love with a dissident. He arranged for his daughter to escape imprisonment. But the Kremlin found out and sent him to Siberia as an example. At some point, he began to get packages containing first belongings of his daughter, then body parts. Eventually, the colonel escaped, allegedly by making a shiv out of his daughter's bone and killing all his guards. He vanished and disappeared to search for the person responsible for his daughter's death. Cooper meets with the FBI agent who assisted Reddington's disappearance, who indicates that the task force can continue if both Reddington and Keene are on board, suggesting strong support from influential figures. However, upon returning to his car, Cooper discovers his driver deceased. Before he can react, he is ambushed and attacked from behind by an assailant wielding a garrote wire. Meanwhile, Tom Keene's contact observes the attack and marks off Cooper's name from their list, indicating another casualty in their scheme. Ressler interviews the assassin, who was picked up 6 blocks from the car. He demands the name, and when the assassin stays silent, begins to strangle him with his jacket. Reddington meets with Fitch and gives him the name, Milos Pavel Kinski. Reddington claims he has no idea why Kinski hates him so much. Reddington asks Fitch to find Kinski for him, and Reddington will take care of the rest. Elizabeth meets with Reddington. They don't know if Cooper is going to make it through the night. She asks how her adopted father Sam fit into all this. Reddington relates that Sam told the story that an old friend had shown up scared, that he was leaving town in danger, and needed someone to care for a little girl whose father had died that night in a fire. So Sam took the little girl in and raised her, always protecting her from the information about her biological father. Reddington says he killed Sam because Sam was in pain, and he had to protect Elizabeth from the truth of her father's identity, which she doesn't reveal. Elizabeth's only memory of her father is of him pulling her out of the fire, saving her. Reddington says knowing his identity would put her in grave danger. He expresses real grief at having to kill Sam. Fitch calls to give Reddington a location on Kursky. He lies to Elizabeth that Berlin hasn't been found yet. Reddington goes to the location Fitch provided, killing several guards and finding Kinski, just as he gives orders to take out Elizabeth next, then Wrestler. At Cooper's hospital bedside, Wrestler insists on the phone that there was an 11th passenger and demands that resources be put to find that passenger. Elizabeth keeps watch over unconscious Cooper. Reddington talks with Kinski and tells him that it's critical to his line of work to remember names. Names of allies, colleagues, enemies, their relationships, wives, children, etc. He tells Kinski he has no idea who Kinski is, much less his face. Kinski admits he's been searching for a weakness of Reddington's for years, until he found Elizabeth. Tom gets into the car with Elizabeth while she's distracted and greets her. He has a gun. Reddington asks Kinski for explanations. He shoots Kinski in the hand and hip when Kinski doesn't talk, when he threatens Kinski's kneecap. Kursky tells him it's about Beirut, 2010, which Reddington identifies as the Campolongo incident. Tom Keene bursts in with Elizabeth as a hostage. Kursky commands Tom to kill her. Reddington kills Kinski, then surrenders himself to Tom in exchange for Elizabeth. Tom shoots at Reddington. Elizabeth wrestles with Tom for control of the gun, and in the struggle she shoots Tom. She subsequently shoots him 2 more times. Reddington offers to kill him, but she asks him to leave while promising to finish it. After he leaves, Tom apologizes to her and whispers in her ear before going unconscious. The news reports that all prisoners have been apprehended. The prisoners are informed by Wrestler that they'll be incarcerated indefinitely. Aram tells Elizabeth and Wrestler that the body of the John Doe was identified and wasn't a prisoner. They realize that the third guard they interviewed in the hospital must have been Berlin. When the prisoners said the giant cut off his hand, they meant the giant cut off his own hand, not the guard's hand. Elizabeth and Wrestler burst into the hospital room, but Berlin is already gone. Elizabeth tells Reddington that the man he killed wasn't Berlin, but Reddington already knew. He wants Berlin to think he thinks Berlin is dead. Reddington tries to convince Elizabeth to stay with the task force, but she refuses. Elizabeth moves out of her house. Cooper starts stirring in his coma. A SWAT team show up at the site where Reddington killed fake Berlin and find the body but no Tom. Elizabeth shows up as Reddington and Dem prepare to leave the country. She tells him that Tom told her that her father is still alive. Reddington tells her that he is certain her father is dead. It's implied she will stay with the task force to look for Berlin. Alone in a room, Reddington looks at the picture he took from the Stewmaker and takes off his shirt to treat his bullet injury. His back is covered with burn scars. See you in the next video.
You love someone, you have no control. You've killed 3 people.
I'm not perfect.
I love hats.
Tom King, I've been looking everywhere for you.
Please say any negative thoughts. I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get lost. Proving everyone wrong. I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'm a state.
Understand Zamani was only the first. First what? Name on the list. What list? Let's call it the Blacklist.